At around 7 p.m. in Barcelona, Spain, we see a female lawyer heading to meet her client. Her client, Adrian Doria, has been accused of murdering a woman. Adrian's lawyer, Felix Leiva, has sent Ms. Virginia Goodman to speak with him and gather every detail about the case so she can understand the situation and help get him out of this trouble. The murder has become a major topic in the news because the victim was a well-known public figure named Laura Vidal. She was a famous photographer and visual artist. The reporter further states that according to the police, she was murdered by Adrian Doria, the owner of Global Gawk Media Company and a well-known businessman. Apparently, the two were having an affair. However, how much truth there is to these claims will only be revealed once the case is solved. Here, after getting ready, Adrian meets Virginia. He was not prepared for this because their meeting was scheduled for a few hours later. Virginia also had no interest in rushing things. The truth is, the situation was serious enough that she had to arrive 3 hours early for the meeting. She has a source inside the court who informed her that the prosecutor has found an important witness whose testimony could completely change the case. Although she still does not know the witness's name, efforts are being made to find out. After hearing the testimony, the judge plans to summon Adrian tonight to record his statement. In such a situation, Virginia can only help him if she knows every small and big detail connected to the case. Adrian says that he has already told everything to his lawyer, Felix Leiva. To this, Virginia replies that she has already read all of it, and it is full of flaws that will fall apart like a house of cards the moment the prosecutor starts asking questions. They need to fix those flaws. Virginia asks him her first question. What was he doing in that hotel room with the dead woman? The truth is, the two of them did not go to that hotel willingly. Adrian had been having an affair with the artist Laura Vidal for the past few months. Because of this, a blackmailer had been threatening them and demanding 100,000 euros. Adrian loves his wife, Sonia, very much. He did not want his relationship with her to fall apart because of his affair with Laura. That is why he agreed to pay such a huge amount to the blackmailer. Following the blackmailer's instructions, they traveled to a hotel 200 miles away from home. They had already been waiting in the hotel room for 2 hours. Suddenly, Adrian received a message from Laura's phone, but she had already thrown the phone into the trash bin. The message said that she was going to reveal everything. It did not take them long to realize that the blackmailer was trying to frame them. Because of this, they quickly started preparing to leave. Just then, someone suddenly pushed Adrian hard from behind. He slammed into a mirror and lost consciousness for a while. When he regained consciousness, the police had already arrived at the door. Before opening it, his eyes fell on a stone statue lying on the floor covered in blood. In the room directly across from him lay Laura's dead body, while the 100,000 euros from the suitcase were scattered all around her. Before he could understand what was happening, he was arrested. He tried countless times to explain to the police that someone else had been inside the room with them, but they refused to listen. According to the police report, the people staying in the nearby rooms testified that they had heard screams coming from inside. However, no one came out of the room before the police arrived. Even if the killer had escaped through the main door, the door would not have been locked from the inside. This means the police found no evidence of anyone escaping from inside or entering from outside. Because of the winter season, all the window handles had already been removed. Even if for a moment Adrian's story is believed, that someone else was inside the room, knocked him unconscious, and then murdered Laura, how did the killer disappear from the locked room afterward? This means Adrian is lying, and his fabricated story will easily fall apart. So if he wants to save himself, he will have to tell the truth. But Adrian stubbornly insists that this is the truth. He claims that he is being framed by spreading rumors about his affair with Laura. He is innocent. The police should be searching for the real killer. When nothing worked, Virginia showed him a news report about a missing boy. The witness who is supposed to appear before the judge in the next 3 hours is connected to this missing boy's case. How do you know all this? Adrian panicked completely. Finally, he confessed the truth. This happened 3 months ago. Adrian had supposedly gone to Paris for a business meeting. Early in the morning, he received a call from his wife, Sonia. She asked him how the meeting went and how the weather in Paris was. They kept talking casually, but then we realized that a completely different kind of meeting was going on here. Adrian was blatantly lying to his wife. In reality, he was not in Paris at all. He was with his girlfriend, Laura. After that, the two of them left for home. They were completely lost in each other's eyes when suddenly a deer appeared in front of their car. While trying to avoid hitting it, they crashed into an oncoming vehicle. Fortunately, neither of them was hurt. But inside the other car was a young man whose condition was critical. When they checked his pulse, they realized he was already dead. The very next moment, Adrian tried to call the police, but Laura stopped him. According to her, the boy had died because of their mistake. which meant they could get into serious trouble. Not only that, their affair could also be exposed, and Laura absolutely did not want that to happen. Because of this one mistake, she could end up divorcing Bruno. Bruno is Laura's husband, who works at a bank. Adrian also loved his wife Sonia. If their affair came to light, both families would be destroyed. That is why he agreed with Laura. They immediately got into the car to escape from there, but the car would not start. The accident had probably damaged something. Just then, they saw another car approaching from a distance. They quickly got out. Laura hid the body while they pretended to fill out insurance details. By then, the other driver had reached them. He asked if they needed help, but all they wanted was to get rid of him somehow. Just then, the dead boy's phone started ringing. Making an excuse, Laura said it was probably the insurance company calling because they were on their way there. She then disconnected the call and pretended to talk to the insurance company. Meanwhile, the boy's blood had started dripping from the car onto the road. Laura somehow tried to hide it, but the driver may have become suspicious. It is possible that he even saw the blood before leaving, which meant there was now an eyewitness to the incident. Laura did not want to take any kind of risk, so she came up with a plan to dispose of the body. Together, they placed the boy's body into the trunk of his own car. Then Adrian drove away to get rid of it, while Laura stayed behind to get their car repaired. Adrian kept driving for nearly an hour, but he could not find a suitable place. Eventually, he reached a bridge with a massive river flowing beneath it. He waited until nightfall, and then pushed the car, along with the boy inside, into the river. He felt an overwhelming sense of guilt after doing it, but there was nothing he could do for the boy anymore. Afterward, he called Laura and shared his location with her. When she arrived to pick him up, she looked even more disturbed than before. The reason was shocking. After Adrian had left, Laura met an old man who was returning home along the same road. She explained her situation to him. The man was a mechanic by profession. After checking the car, he realized that the accident had caused the starter sensor to get stuck. He said the car could be fixed by resetting the module, but for that, he would need to tow the car to his house. Laura agreed to his suggestion. After that, they drove off while towing the car. During the journey, they got to know each other better. The old man's name was Thomas Garrido, while Laura introduced herself as Raquel. 20 minutes later, they arrived at his house, where Laura discovered something horrifying. The boy who had died in the accident was none other than Thomas and Elvira's son, Daniel Garrido. Laura was completely shocked after learning this. What a cruel twist of fate. The more she tried to run away from the situation, the deeper she became trapped in it. Meanwhile, Daniel's mother was already worried because he had not returned home. The next moment, she called his co-workers at the office and found out that he had left for home immediately after work ended. By then, Tomas had repaired the car and returned home, where Elvira told him everything. They assumed Daniel must be out with some girl. Still, Tomas decided to call him once. That was when Laura realized her mistake. She had accidentally carried Daniel's phone away in her pocket. Before they could notice anything, she quickly hid the phone beneath a cushion on the sofa. However, by then they had already heard the ringtone. When questioned, Laura lied and claimed she had not heard any ringing at all. But when they called again, Daniel's phone was found very close to her. Why was she hiding this? Perhaps because she looked desperate to leave for home. They eventually let her go. As soon as she left, she went to pick up Adrian and told him everything that had happened. What happened today was terrible. What fault did those poor old parents have that they deserved such punishment? The next morning, Adrian had his car scrapped so no one would ever be able to trace it. That was also the day when both of them decided to end their relationship. At the same time, Adrian went to the local police station and filed a report saying that he had gone to Paris for business. When he returned, he discovered that his car had been stolen. He told the same story to his wife, Sonia. Meanwhile, the police continued searching for the missing boy with full effort, but for many days they found no evidence at all. It seemed as if the matter had been buried, and Adrian peacefully returned to focusing on his business. But one day, the police arrived at his office. Daniel's father had filed a report stating that on the same day his son disappeared, there had been an accident involving a PMD car near their house. Inside it was a woman named Raquel who also had Daniel's phone. He suspected that the woman in the accident were somehow connected to his son. Through the car details, Adrian's name eventually came up. The police were still searching for the woman. However, Adrian completely denied recognizing her, even though the sketch they showed him was actually of his girlfriend Laura. On top of that, he had already filed a stolen car report and provided proof that he was supposedly in Paris, so there was no major issue for him. The rest was handled by his lawyer, Felix. As far as Virginia could understand, Felix had not handled things properly because Virginia's source had found Adrian's name in the police files. It is possible that the prosecutor also discovered Adrian's name. After that, they may have started monitoring him, waiting for him to make a mistake. And during this time, Adrian did make one mistake. The situation was such that he simply could not stop himself. 3 weeks after the incident, he saw a news report claiming that Daniel Garrido was actually a thief. According to the report, he had not disappeared at all. Instead, he had stolen 500 euros from the bank where he worked and then run away. The moment Adrian saw this news, he immediately understood who was behind it. He instantly called Laura from a street phone. Perhaps this one mistake was what finally brought them under the prosecutor's radar. Adrian was furious because not only had they taken that boy's life, but now they were also placing such a disgusting accusation on him. He had never imagined Laura could stoop this low. Another question arises. How did she manage to do all this? The truth is, while they were disposing of Daniel's body, Laura had kept his wallet with her, thinking it might be useful later, and she was right. From Daniel's ID and other documents, she discovered that the bank branch where he worked was managed by her husband, Bruno. Using this to her advantage, she framed Daniel. By using Daniel's banking card, she withdrew 500 euros and made it appear as though Daniel had not gone missing, but had instead stolen money from the bank and disappeared afterward. However, even after going to such lengths, their troubles did not end. A few days later, a blackmailer contacted Adrian and demanded 100,000 euros. Apparently, he had seen Adrian disposing of the body. Adrian did not know how much truth there was to that claim, but he did know one thing for certain. If it was true and the blackmailer exposed him, the 10 years of hard work he had put into building his life would be destroyed. After all, he had risen from poverty to reach this position. People looked up to him as a role model. Perhaps the blackmailer was the same driver who had met them during the accident. After becoming suspicious, he may have kept an eye on them and eventually discovered what they had done. Based on that, he started blackmailing Adrian, threatening that if he did not receive 100,000 euros by the next day, the police would find Daniel's body. The MP3 player he sent them contained complete instructions on how to deliver the money. He had personally booked room 715 for them at the Bella Vista Hotel. Following his instructions, they reached Beer Railway Station before 5 p.m. The blackmailer was supposed to call the phone booth in the parking area exactly at 5 p.m. Right on time, the phone booth rang. It was the blackmailer. Before boarding the train, he instructed Laura to throw her phone into the trash bin. If she failed to do so, he would expose their secret. Left with no choice, Laura threw away her phone. However, she still had a private phone that she used only to communicate with Adrian. After reaching the Bella Vista Hotel, they discovered that room 715 had been booked under Adrian's name. They waited there for 2 hours for the blackmailer to arrive. Then Adrian suddenly received a message from Laura's phone saying, "I'm going to tell everyone everything." This meant the blackmailer must have retrieved the phone from the trash and sent them the message himself. Right after that, someone knocked Adrian unconscious. Then everything else happened. Adrian was completely convinced that the same driver had blackmailed them and murdered Laura. But if all he wanted was money, why would he kill Laura? Even the money was still lying scattered around the room, which means this entire story sounds weak and hollow. It would make far more sense if the story revolved around Daniel's father. According to the crime scene, the murder was committed out of revenge, not for money. The real motive could have been Daniel's father seeking justice for his son. Since his son never received justice, he may have started blackmailing Adrian. Then he called them to the Bella Vista Hotel, murdered Laura, and framed Adrian for the crime. At least this version of the story could sound believable to the jury because after the incident, the entire country already believes Adrian is a murderer. His friends, business partners, and even his wife. Tomas not only turned him into Laura's killer, but also destroyed both his life and his company. Hearing this defense theory made Adrian extremely happy. He finally believed Felix's words, that Virginia Goodman was one of the best lawyers when it came to preparing witnesses. But one question was still bothering Adrian. How would they prove that Thomas had entered the room? The police had found no evidence that anyone had entered from outside. Fortunately, Virginia had already found a solution to this problem while studying the case details. Calling them to the Bella Vista Hotel, located 200 miles away from their home, was not a coincidence at all. It had all been carefully planned. Tomas's wife worked at the Bella Vista Hotel. She arranged a way for Thomas to enter and leave room 715. At the same time, she secretly gave him a window handle. This allowed Tomas to hide inside the wardrobe, while his wife locked the room from the outside and returned to work. Now all they had to do was wait for the right moment. 2 hours after Adrian and Laura entered the room, they received the message. Thomas had sent it using Laura's phone. In the message, he wrote that he was going to reveal everything about their affair. If they wanted to discuss what would happen to their relationship, they should come meet him at the Bella Vista Hotel. The moment they read the message, they immediately realized someone was trying to frame them. That was when Thomas attacked Adrian, knocked him unconscious, and murdered Laura. At the same moment, a couple happened to be passing outside the room and heard Laura screaming. Meanwhile, Thomas continued carrying out his plan. He placed Adrian's fingerprints onto the stone statue used in the murder and left it behind. He even placed Laura's phone there so the police would understand everything the moment they read the message. Just then, someone started knocking on the main door. There were 3 people outside, which meant Tomas could no longer escape through the main entrance. So he switched to Plan B, and that is the complete story of how Tomas Garrido was framed. Just then, Virginia's source informed her that the witness who was going to testify against Adrian in court was none other than the driver they had encountered after the accident, which meant Adrian's conviction was almost certain. However, Virginia already had a solution for this problem as well. If they could prove that Adrian was not with Laura that day, but was actually in Paris, something his lawyer Felix had already established before, then all they needed to prove was that Laura had been alone in that cabin. She had booked the cabin under her own name. Not only that, but during the return trip when the accident happened, she had been alone in the car. She hit Daniel, hid his body somewhere, and later withdrew money using Daniel's bank card. Using this version of events, they could convince the jury that Adrian was not Laura's accomplice, but rather her next victim. Laura was nothing more than a manipulative woman who extorted money from people. Now the only thing they needed was Daniel's body, so they could place one of Laura's personal belongings near it and frame her completely. Everything else was fine, but what about the witness who was going to testify against Adrian? Then Virginia revealed something that completely shocked him. In reality, the prosecutor had no witness at all. Virginia had only said that to force the truth out of him. How could someone be this clever? After becoming fully convinced that Virginia could save him, Adrian finally marked the location on the map. At the same time, he confessed one more horrifying truth. Daniel had still been alive when he disposed of the car, but by then, they had already gone too far to turn back. He revealed this because after the autopsy, the police would discover that Daniel had actually drowned to death. That would turn the case from an accident into outright murder, completely destroying him. So they would have to find a solution for that problem as well. Hearing this made Virginia furious. She said that any normal person would have tried to save the child, but Adrian was nothing short of a monster. She even began to believe that the entire plan after the accident had not been Laura's idea at all, but Adrian's. Maybe it was Laura who wanted to call the police while Adrian stopped her. Maybe Laura had felt sympathy for those old parents. But because of Adrian's pressure, she could not say anything. But when Adrian used his power to frame Daniel as a thief, Laura could no longer tolerate it. In the end, she decided to help Daniel's parents and told his mother the truth. However, she did not know where Daniel's body was hidden, so there was nothing they could do. Laura knew very well that Adrian would never confess his crime willingly, so she came up with a plan. She called Adrian and told him that the driver from the accident was blackmailing her and that they would have to pay him. Then she booked the hotel room under Adrian's name. After meeting him there, she started sending him threatening messages so he would surrender and give the money to Daniel's parents. She had booked the room under Adrian's name to protect herself, but she had no idea what kind of monster Adrian truly was. The next moment, Adrian killed Laura. However, he was unable to escape from the room afterward. After getting trapped, the very first thing on his mind was deleting the message. But at the last moment, he realized that he could actually use the message to save himself. So he built an entire story around it. However, the story he created was weak and lifeless. That is why his lawyer Felix hired Virginia Goodman. At this point, Adrian admits that he has committed 2 murders. But one question was still troubling him. If Laura had told Daniel's mother the entire truth, then why did they never go to the police? The answer was simple. Thomas had already understood Adrian's power long ago. He knew that without the body, they would never be able to prove the crime. That is why he started keeping Adrian under surveillance. He even rented a room in the building directly across from Adrian's apartment so he could monitor his every movement. Even now, he was probably watching them. "How do you know all this?" Adrian asked in shock. No matter what, Virginia had to save him. Before preparing the final defense, Virginia took a short break and went out for coffee. After she left, Adrian noticed that his phone had been switched off. Not only that, but the ink from the pen Virginia had given him to mark the map had leaked all over his pocket. By now, he was beginning to suspect something. But the moment he opened the pen, everything became clear. There was a microphone hidden inside it. Through that microphone, Thomas had been listening to and recording their entire conversation. The next moment, Adrian ran toward the window and was left stunned after seeing Virginia outside. She was not Virginia at all. She was Daniel's mother disguised as Virginia Goodman. The very next moment, they called the police and revealed the entire truth. Meanwhile, we finally see the real Virginia Goodman arriving on time for her meeting with Adrian. But by then, it no longer mattered. So friends, That was the story of The Invisible Guest. Hope you enjoyed the story.